Good morning and welcome everyone to today's webinar, Systems and Strategies to Help You Win in Today's Purchase Market. My name is Charles Warnock. I'm a marketing consultant at the Content Marketing Factory and co-chair of the California MBA Mortgage Technology and Marketing Committee. We know that as a mortgage professional, your days are busy and your time is important. So we're going to try and pack as much useful information as we can into the next hour or so. Slide. So this is a popular expression around here. It's been said that amateurs have goals while professionals have systems and processes. So I think today's mortgage lenders have developed systems and habits to support their success in all types of market conditions. And the second part of the equation is that the industry's top producers actively embrace technology and use it for a competitive advantage. Next. Okay, so investing in the right systems and strategies can help lenders create profitable co-marketing relationships, build your pipeline, win more business from referrals, make the most of every lead, and use technology to reach more prospects, respond faster, and close more loans. Next. Okay, today we have two great speakers who will share some of their secrets for capturing more business in today's challenging purchase market. Gary Martell Jr. is president of Mountain West Financial Incorporated, a retail and wholesale lender based in Redlands, California. Chris Backe is director of business development at Velocify, a cloud-based sales and marketing platform that's now part of Ellie Mae. Gary and Chris are looking forward to answering your questions, so you can go ahead and type them into the chat box at any time during the webinar, and we'll get to all your questions during the live Q&A. We're excited to bring you this webinar, and we hope you learn a lot and leave with some actionable strategies that you can use to grow your own business right away. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter, Gary Martell.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to thank you guys for taking some of your valuable time and spending with us. I'm probably not going to give you anything that you've never heard of before, but I'm going to share it in a way and that hopefully you take a couple nuggets away and improve, reinforce what you're doing or improve or get some ideas of how to help build business. So over our 28 years as Mountain West of being successful, we owe it to a lot of different strategies and really a lot of different people. But I try and look at three different things that we've done. One, we've tried to keep a really strong culture about managing home ownership. We've made sure that we've invested in some of the latest and greatest technology. And we want to make sure that we focus on the client experience. I'm proud to say in the last year, our loans per loan officer per month have gone up almost 20%, loans per loan officer per month from 2017 to 2018. And we've done that using several things. So first of all, know that today the market has changed, right? We all can agree that we've left pretty much a refinance market and we're in a strong purchase money market. And by that, that's kind of, that was one time what we called a regular market where 75–80% of the loans were purchase money and 20–25% were still refinances, right? Refinances for cause. But in a strong purchase money market, it changes how we do business. We really have to blend our technology as well as our interactions with our customer, our relationship building. We've got to blend it so we're using it to the optimal between the two. In a purchase money market, it is definitely relationship driven, not only with your customers and clients, but also, with the loan officers, business partners, right? The realtors, the closing agents, the appraisers, so on and so forth. So, and as you know, there's a lot of different parties involved. The perfect blend of technology and human resources combined is what builds that loyal, raving fan, right? And for every company, it's different because it depends on the company's culture. It depends on their operational limitations. It also has a lot to do with their risk appetite and, of course, the technology that they have that they use. So everybody does this a little bit different, but in the end, we all kind of combine them to give the best client experience. So I'm just going to give you a couple keys to what we've done to try and build to build stronger relationships with not only our existing clients, but also our referral partners and our business partners. So first of all, I'm going to argue that today's consumer is more educated. And I've heard different comments on this, but if nothing else, they're being heavily marketed to from a lot of different types of people. And what I think most of them feel is that they need to at least get involved with some of the mortgage process using technology. Go online, do research, start looking at lenders, do some of that. And I don't know what the percentage is, but I do know that out of the ones that start an application or start the loan process or start the home looking process on the internet, very few of them, a small percentage, actually completes it. At some point in time, they turn in and go to a trusted professional, and that's usually the loan officer that they have either been referred to or they have looked up, or somehow they've connected with in one way or the other. But there's some things that have to be out there, and I've listed a couple of them on here. I think to make sure that a borrower, that apprehension, can I get the loan or can I not get the loan, needs to be removed immediately. So the quicker that you can give that, or the loan officer can provide an instant pre-approval or pre-qualification, the better. You almost always have to have a online application process. So if a client wants to start that process online, they definitely can. And many of them, like I say, feel they have to. And then at some point, they usually convert over to wanting to talk to that professional. Great marketing campaigns, and I think all of us, we're going to talk about this a little bit, contact management system and how you manage that and how you interact not only with your customer base, but also your closed loan and your referral partners. And we have been in the purchase money business. That's been our forte since we've been in business. And I think the faster that you can get that personal contact to the lead or customer or client, the better your chances of retaining them, right? This has got to be a relationship-driven transaction and not just a transaction. The technology solutions that we have to provide today, again, go with that consumer that's been educated that there's a lot of stuff online. So we make sure that they download our mobile app immediately, and that mobile app has a lot of tools in it, amortization schedules, what will it cost me, what does this look like? And one of the reasons why we want to do that is, first of all, provide them some information, but also give them a quick way to get information for their transaction, because every time they go on the web and they type in stuff about mortgages, I've just upped the amount of people that I'm competing with, because now they become somebody else's lead as well. So we want to make sure as much as possible we can supply them the technology tools that they want so they don't go somewhere else looking for them. And it's really important, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but today, at least in California, the market has, it's still in most geographic areas a seller's market. And borrowers, where they used to go in on a buyer's market and they put an offer in 30 days, they would be closed, or 45 or 60 days, right? Their first offer gets accepted, so on and so forth. Now, many of them have to go through the education process where there's a $400,000 house listed and they're going to offer $380 and hope they meet in the middle, and they find out that house sold for over $400,000. So as they go through that education process, a couple things happen. The dwell time for that lead becomes longer. In some cases, we're looking at 4, 6, and as much as 8 months, even longer, but those are outliers. But the dwell time for that lead is much longer. And so we have to have a way to stay connected with them, because there's a lot of other people they run into that either know a lender, are a lender, or have a resource that they want to connect them with. So, and then also the motivation prospect, because as I've been looking for a house for 1, 2, 3 months, I put several offers in and I didn't get them, I become demotivated to become a homeowner, and I just go back to renting. And we want to make sure that we keep those clients motivated. And in so doing, we usually connect with our business partners, usually a realtor or other folks in that chain, that we work hard to keep them educated and motivated through the process, because it's to everybody's benefit. And obviously, becoming a homeowner is still one of the best things they can do. So we work hard to co-brand with our realtor partners, but like I mentioned before, there's a lot of there's closing agents and other folks along the way. So, what I want to do is talk about keeping those relationships strong. Like I mentioned, there's a longer dwell period, at least for our company, for the leads that are out there. You know, it's not uncommon for somebody to be, before they close a transaction, from the first time we interact with them to closing, a lot of times 120 plus days, right? I think everybody has contact management systems where they've said, hey, we have a prior to the loan campaign, and it's like 30 days or 40 days or 2 months maybe. And last year, we really spent some time and energy looking at that and saying, if we're going to make sure that these borrowers are going to get sticky with us, then we need to continue to send them information throughout the process. And again, like I said, we did that several ways, but two that really work for us is one, the mobile application, because they know now they can get connected with technology. And even before the loan starts, you know, we're sending them information. They can look things up. Every time they look up something, our mobile app notifies us, hey, Mr. Smith is in there looking at an amortization schedule. So it gives the loan officer a chance to reach back out to them. But you also want to show them that you have and embrace technology, right? Your company embraces it, so that the consumer, because a lot of people will connect technology with a cost savings, which I think it is, but so that perception that these guys are efficient and they know what they're doing and they've got the up-to-date technology is out there. And again, I'm just using mobile app as one of those, and that's worked for us. But the loan calculators, the loan updates, we want to be able to, for the borrower to be able to upload a doc, you know, take their phone out, take a picture of it and upload it into their file, get immediate updates on the loan and notifications. And again, even mobile app, even though maybe I can't do it because of my eyes, but I think a lot of people will argue that you can start an application on the mobile app, which most of them allow. And if you're not utilizing that, I think, again, keeping that consumer tied to the company for a lot of information and the technology. And then one of the other things that we really invested in last year was our House Hunter campaign. In our House Hunter campaign, we moved out to 8 months. And what we did is we interviewed a lot of borrowers, we interviewed loan officers, we interviewed other business partners and said, you know, what are the types of things that we need to be able to put out there consistently for that consumer to feel like they're with somebody that they want to stay with, right? Because we want to build that relationship. Excuse me, the relationship during the transaction helps in a couple ways. One, it helps in case we run into any roadblocks or challenges, but also the stronger that relationship is built prior to the loan and during the loan, the more loyal that person will be as referring folks to you after the closing of the transaction. But our House Hunter campaign, we looked at and said we need to make sure that we're giving them education, value-added content, you know, white papers, local information from the community, things about the mortgage business. And then we varied the content and we varied the delivery method so that we hit a lot of different folks. We have video content and we have links to other locations so that, you know, people that really don't want to spend a lot of time reading, you know, they can watch videos and get a lot of the same messages. So we've tried to do it in several different ways that we can capture and keep the attention of those folks, because it's a long time. And in so doing, we're also use some of our business partners to help with that, because again, if we are co-branding with them, then the business partner is helping cement that relationship as well, and that allows us to keep them longer. It's really easy if you're an originator and you have 5 or 10 leads, right? Everybody can keep track of those, give them a call every so often, so on and so forth. But when you get to 15, 20, 50, 100, and again, if you've got a period of 120 to 180 days that you got these folks for, and the loan officers are truly out there building their pipeline and leads, you got to have systems to keep those people engaged throughout that process so that they don't get, you know, pulled away and end up closing with somebody else. Because we've all had that nightmare where you work with somebody 30, 60 days and you find out they bought a house after that and they didn't come to you for that loan because you didn't stay connected with them. A very other important part of this is we prompt the loan officer to have to engage with them personally, right? Because technology, we use technology to support our relationships. So the loan officer is out there, that's the number one thing. And then the technology tools just allow them to work smarter, right? And use technology to follow up and stay in contact with those folks that really want technology more. But what we found is by prompting the loan officer, and we even have some scripting as part of this that says, hey, go out and ask them, can I send this to you? And when the consumer says yes, whether they realize or not, they've just engaged you, and now they've got you starting to work for them, and you're fulfilling a commitment, which shows that you follow through with what you say you're going to do. So there's a lot of different pieces to this, and if you have a campaign that's really not solid, you will have a lot of folks that your loan officer works with, and they put whatever lead, however they're holding that, those get away. And I would venture to say, if you look at the amount of leads that start and the amount of those that turn into loans, a lot of people, they're a lot lower than they should be. So I talked before about increasing your sales team, and this is really through consumers that are extremely satisfied, happy, that are raving fans and want to share how well you've done. And this can also be with your business partners as well. We send surveys out on every single loan that closes, and they come in the loan documents, and the surveys are filled out between the two ways we send them out. We get over 98% fulfillment on those surveys. So people take the time to write something out, good, bad, or indifferent. And what we're really proud of is this year we made it a thing to get above 20% of testimonials that we could use, and I'll go into that in a second. But what we found is we're at 28 in April and 29% in May. 29% of the people wrote positive testimonials that our loan officers are able to utilize and put either through their web presence, their social media, or however else they're getting those out. And a lot of times we use those to help reinforce that somebody's made a good decision, right? Because they've looked, and it builds credibility when they can look online and say, hey, these other 10 people, and all of us should always look ourselves up. The loan officer should all look themselves up on the internet and see what they come up with. And if they don't have a lot of 5-star testimonials, that needs to be one of their #1 priorities, because that's how people vet folks that they're not sure of or not. So it's really important to make sure that we turn every closed loan into part of our sales team. So one of the things that I mentioned, we send a survey out with loan documents, right? And we've gotten really good benefits. I've got a really brief up at the top left-hand corner. You can see the survey itself. It's really small. We've been working on this for 4 years, and we had longer ones. We had 2-page ones. We had testimonials separate. But we find if we just ask them a couple questions and then allow them to comment and then allow them to give us testimonials, people are pretty free-flowing with this. And there's a lot of benefits to this. #1 is we find that we have fewer real complaints, because a lot of times we will follow up and we'll call the folks if there is a comment of something that they were not satisfied with, and we find out a lot of times it might have been another component of the transaction, but they just figured we had control over it. So sometimes we have to call and say, no, that's a closing company or an appraiser. It's just something so that they have a better understanding. Not everybody knows how the loan process works, and they make assumptions that may or may not be true. The other thing that really is helpful is it detects internal problems. Every company has something that goes off the track, right? Whether it's a communication issue or a process we thought was in place and all of a sudden it's changed a little bit and somebody's not taking care of something. The best way to find that out is your customers and your loan officers usually keep us honest and make sure that we are doing what we say we're going to do. And here's a really neat thing. We make sure that when there's something negative, a member of management, anywhere from production managers, operation managers, including myself, we rotate out calling clients, and we ask them, hey, what happened? How was that? And I had a personal one where I talked to a guy for a while who was really upset, would never refer friends or family to us. And at the end, he gave me a referral that one of our loan officers closed a loan for. So we actually took what could have been a complaint and turned it into a raving fan. The other part of this is by doing this, we probably head off some complaints that might end up at a regulatory agency. So that's just another benefit to that. The big thing is providing the opportunity for that customer client to become part of our sales team and promote the loan officer. So the other thing is we put it out with loan documents, and then the ones that don't get filled out, we follow up. We use SurveyMonkey. I know there's other ones out there, but then we send them a link to SurveyMonkey, and with that, that's how we end up picking up above 98%. And we usually pick up 1 or 2% more that give us surveys or give us testimonials as well. So we found that that's really been beneficial. Okay, so I'm just going to touch base on there's so much technology out there, right? We all have great loan origination systems. We all have great contact management systems and interfaces with our doc vendors and, things that help us in the technology world. I've been at this for a long time. Our first technology was a 286 computer with an Okidata printer, and we were technology minded. Today, there's just so much stuff, right? It's prolific how much stuff comes out there. But we are a customer service company that uses technology to help us. And just a couple things on the marketing aspect. We have a marketing department that puts a lot of stuff out there and engages with the clients, current, past clients, current business partners. But we really try and work to penetrate what we call closed network groups, where I'm on social media and I'm part of a group of people that I'm a person that is a trusted person within that group. And if we can get that person to spread the good word inside that group, it really enables us to market and build credibility and confirmation of what kind of business we do within there. We also use credit reports. I think all of us have credit vendors. These transactions a lot of times take longer. So it allows us to take a customer that maybe was having some issues with credit, help work on their credit, give them a path to home ownership, and through that process, again, they become stuck with us or sticky to us, or they become a much more loyal client because we help them get a home where somebody else just said, hey, their credit wasn't good enough. The problem is a lot of loan officers wanted immediate gratification because they were in a refinance market, and they would, they talked to somebody on the phone, that didn't work, they go to the next call, the next call, the next call. Today's market, you have to really invest in your relationship building skills with your customer. You got to give them the mobile app. And if you've got a lot of people, you might start to look at other ways of contacting them that allows you to leave a message for them without having to call and talk to every single person, because you're going to run out of daylight at some point. So, we use another system called Slide Dial or Broadcast. And if you haven't used that before, it just allows you to get to more leave a message for more customers, and typically they will return your call if you've got a relationship built with them. So I'm going to end up with what I think is the real secret. Here's the real deal. There's so much technology. First of all, I would recommend that you stay consistent with the technology you use and really leverage it, get really good at it. Don't chase one technology after the other, because the real secret has to do with making sure the mortgage loan originator works, right? They know how to communicate with people. They know how to follow up, do what they say they're going to do. They know how to properly promote themselves. Make sure that they're out there as a mortgage professional and not just somebody who is a salesperson, right? And by doing that, they have to know their craft. They have to invest in themselves and learn their profession. And they have to do the right thing for the borrower. Whether it's right or wrong for them, they have to take care of that customer, because if they become a raving fan, they will continue to send business to them forever. And probably the number one thing is they have to have a strong work ethic. So I hope I just gave you something to think about. There's a lot of different ways to do business in today's purchase money market. And one of the big things to realize is we're all out there helping shape communities, and how we go about our business may vary, but we all have a lot of the same goals. And it's who gets out there, stays consistent, and stays committed to the industry and work. Thanks for listening to me for a bit. If you guys have any other questions, then I would be happy to answer those a little later. So I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator.
All right. Thank you, Gary. That was some great information, lots of high-level strategies for the purchase market, but also a lot of sort of nuts and bolts tactics about building the business. So thank you for that. We're going to move now to Chris Backe, and we're going to shift gears a little bit. We'll still be talking about building business in the purchase market, but I think Chris is going to address it from a little different perspective, along with emerging technology and some of the automation we can put into play. Chris? Are you muted, Chris?
Yeah, sorry, I'm over here just challenged with technology, ironically. Thanks, Charles, appreciate it. And Gary, thank you so much for the insight. I think there was a lot of stuff that resonated for me. I was certainly taking notes as I was listening to you as well. So what I was hoping to do is share a few insights from a technology perspective. You know, about 6 months ago, Ellie Mae bought Velocify, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with Ellie Mae and the technologies that they bring to the table. With about a third of the loans being originated in this country going through the Ellie Mae platform, there's a wealth of information that is available both to our customers and prospects. And I'll share some of those insights with you as well today. From a Velocify standpoint, there's over 5 million leads that move through that platform on a monthly basis. So again, it's a huge wealth of information that I have to draw upon, and I will try to share a few of those little nuggets with you today in the context of our discussion. And the way I wanted to start this out is talk a little bit about what we see in the current landscape. And obviously, sales and marketing costs are extremely high. I think the latest MBA numbers had the average cost per origination is roughly $9,000. So you don't have to do a whole lot of math to figure, hey, if it's costing you $9,000 a loan, you're either not making money or not making very much. And so that's a big challenge for lenders today. And we know a big component of that obviously is the pure cost of origination, the administrative cost of that, but a significant component also has to do with sales and marketing. There's a challenge with sales and marketing, though, in that oftentimes, particularly within lenders, you have your producers that are out there selling, and you may have somebody else that's managing your marketing. And those two components aren't connected. They're not talking. Marketing's out there spending money trying to generate leads for the sales organization. Sales isn't communicating back. They're simply saying the leads aren't good, but they're not communicating back as to why. You end up with a very inefficient sales process. I know MBA averages have, I think the average LO is doing about 4 transactions a month. I know Gary was talking about proper implementation of technology within his organization yielded around a 30% increase. So there's definitely room for technology to play a part in improving your sales efficiencies. And then lastly, but certainly not least, we have the situation of the digital mortgage. Technology is transforming our industry more now than ever before. And you see companies like Quicken with Rocket Mortgage and others that are now coming out of the shadows, if you will, where you're sort of a service arm for the realtor or for another entity, and really having a more direct relationship with the consumer. And that's affecting how loan officers are both engaging with technology and engaging with their customer. But how do you pick technology? There's a ton of it out there. Depending on what you're trying to get done, whether you need a mobile application or you need to, some widget for pulling credit or CRM system, or depends what it is, there are a zillion choices for everything. So it can be really confusing to try to pick the right technology. And I think Gary said it best. He said, don't just buy technologies for the sake of buying the latest shiny object. You have to have a plan, and there has to be a reason. And I was thinking about that. And I was thinking about food, as I often do. My wife made an amazing dinner last night, and it came from a great recipe. And I think that applies to what we're talking about today. Gary talked about sort of how he operates his business. And for him, it's a recipe for success. And so I want to put it in that context of a recipe. And in your case, that recipe is really your customer's journey, or the experience that they have with you from the very beginning, or that point of thought when they're thinking about buying a house, all the way to the point where they've done a transaction with you and beyond. Because Gary's mentioned in his segment, it's not just about getting that one transaction, it's about getting that customer for life. You know, the average consumer is going to buy a house once every 5 or 6 years. They're going to do refinance transactions for other life events. And so you want to maintain that relationship with your consumer throughout the life of your relationship with them. And so think about that recipe, that customer journey is your recipe or your guiding light. The technology then becomes the ingredients. And the recipe, quite frankly, is only as good as the quality of the ingredients that you use. And so I'm going to break this out into sort of 4 main components. The first sort of ingredient to your recipe is the consumer experience. Before I get into that, I wanted to forget about my JD Power survey that talks about consumers and sort of their adoption of technology. And so 43% of consumers said they intend to start a mortgage journey online. And that's a testament to the fact of the trends that we see even in 2018. This was up from 28% in 2016. Yet the problem is that fewer consumers are indicating that they're satisfied with the experience. And so again, this goes back to, you may have the right recipe, but if you're using the wrong ingredients or the wrong combination of ingredients, it's going to affect that user's experience. And so let's talk about the types of ingredients that you should use. And we break it down into 4 components. The first one has to do with the consumer. So Gary talked a little bit about different points of sale. He has a mobile application. You should have some web form if you don't already. Many of you are probably using some of the technologies from Ellie Mae, whether it be Web Center or Consumer Connect that was just launched, or various other points of sale. The key is that you have to have an online experience that allows the consumer to experience that mortgage when and where they want. The next piece of that, the next ingredient in your recipe is your back office. And you know, it goes without saying that everyone has to have an LOS. Many of you use Encompass. Many of you are probably using some other loan origination software that you've been using for years. It's important that that LOS that you use is interoperable with your point of sale, so that the consumer is getting the appropriate information, a visibility into that loan process at any point in time. So that interoperability is key in their ability to communicate with the back office. The next important ingredient is the loan officer's experience in this recipe. There has to be some sort of technology for the loan officer to use to aid the consumer throughout their journey with you in the loan origination process. So even though there's self-service components in your point of sale, I think Gary said it as well, there's a fine line between high tech and high touch. And the loan officer has to have their own component of technology that allows them to manage the interactions with that consumer from the point of thought all the way through the customer life cycle and beyond. So managing those contact points through the lead process, being able to communicate things like status and updates online, or do a loan comparison analysis through the technology. And again, that interoperability is key. The CRM that the loan officer uses has to connect with the back office or the LOS, and also has to connect with the consumer point of sale. The last important ingredient that I want to talk about in this recipe is the marketer's experience. And so oftentimes in our industry, when we talk about CRM, when I peel back the layers of the onion, it's come to find out what they're really talking about is marketing automation, or sending out email campaigns post-close to re-engage that consumer over the long term. And that's extremely important in order to keep that customer for life. Using techniques with your marketing automation or your mortgage CRM system is important to send things out like birthday emails or a annual mortgage analysis, just to stay engaged with that consumer so that when the next life event happens, they're thinking about you and not thinking about your competitor. And I'll wrap up this slide just by saying that interoperability, the mixing, if you will, of the ingredients for this consumer experience recipe is extremely important when you're selecting technology. You don't want to have those outlier technologies that operate as an island, as the value that they bring to you is going to be limited. So I want to shift gears from the tech itself and talk about methodology to get the most out of the tech that you're using in your recipe, sort of the techniques for bringing that recipe to life with the right set of ingredients. And the first thing I want to talk about is this idea of multi-channel communication. In this day and age with millennials, and even the baby boomers are big adopters of technology, you have to be able to reach your consumer when, where, and how they want to engage with you. And what that means is you have to be able to support, obviously, email and phone support, but you also have to support text messaging now. You have to be able to support online chat. You have to be able to support video. Those multi-layers of communication have to be able to be leveraged. And if you go back to that other slide that I was talking about, the interoperability of your ingredients becomes really important here. And it's not just about the types of communication, but it's the cadence of the communication. So all the way from the beginning of the sales process, where you're just trying to make initial contact, having a contact strategy for that, as well as having a communication strategy to keep those existing customers and referral partners engaged in the process during the loan process and beyond, is just as important. So cadence and channel are keys to communication in this day and age. And leveraging technology is a great way to do it. But how do you do that consistently? You've got email, you've got text, you've got consumers that are every step in the process. You're trying to reach the new referrals. You're trying to recruit new partners. You're trying to stay engaged with the folks that are in the origination process, trying to stay engaged with those folks at the end. It's very difficult to keep all that straight, and lots of things slip through the cracks. I think Gary was painting that picture of, you start to have 5, 10 leads a day, or you're getting multiple channel partners that you're pulling leads in from different sources. There's lots of opportunities for things to slip through the cracks. I think today in the purchase market, the average time from a consumer engaging on the home can range anywhere from a couple of days to several months. Even here in California, I was surprised to find out that when I spoke with lenders, many of the consumers that they work with, they might not find a house for 3-4 months, and it's largely because they're getting overbid. So it's important that you're staying engaged with that consumer throughout their home shopping journey. So when they finally do get that loan, they're engaged with you. And the best way to do that is to leverage technology to make sure those activities don't fall through the cracks, and then to automate things that are automatable so that you get leverage from that technology. I go back to Gary's presentation, and a lot of the secrets to his success, I think, have to do with this idea of a contact strategy that gets followed consistently amongst his team. And that consistency requires a level of deliberate execution or a level of discipline. And not everybody has that level of discipline. So technology sort of is that great equalizer. When you're automating things, it makes every loan officer function like your top loan officer. Once you sell that loan to a customer, I mentioned a couple of times, it's important for you to stay engaged with that consumer post-close. And here's some MBA estimates that just sort of draw that comparison over the last several years. What you see in the, hopefully it looks orange to you guys, it looks orange to me, it might look yellow to you, but that represents the average number of transactions that a average LO does in a particular year. The blue bar represents the LOs that are using a form of one-to-one marketing to stay engaged with their consumer post-close. It goes without saying that you get leverage from that. Staying engaged yields on average of one additional transaction per loan officer per month. And that starts to yield big results when you start to spread that across your team. And this is one of those things that's really easy to do because you can manage this centrally as an organization. Post-close marketing is something that you can do on behalf of your producers. You know, you'll have the top 10 percenters that want to do some of their own marketing, but this is largely one of those things that works on their behalf without them having to do anything. Now, it goes without saying that you want to make sure that you inspect what you expect from your business, and so the technology choices that you make should provide you a set of canned reports that give you visibility into the segment that you want. So if you're obviously looking at pipeline reports and analyzing that data in your LOS to streamline your underwriting processes or your origination process, you need to do the same thing with your marketing solution, with your point of sale, with your loan officers engagement platform. Make sure that you're setting those service level agreements internally and then managing against those SLAs. That is ultimately the key to your success of making sure that you have the right recipe, the right ingredients, and always be looking at ways to improve. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn back over to Charles.
All right, thank you, Chris. I thought it was very interesting to sort of get the lender perspective and then the technology provider perspective. So hopefully that provided a good cross-section of information. Now we're moving on to our question period. I'm going to turn it over to Dustin real quick.
All right, thanks, Charles. So if you have any questions for either of our presenters, you can use the question module there and ask away and punch in your question there, and we'll try to get it answered here in the time remaining. Charles, I think you had a few questions that you had ready to go for our speakers. So I'll let you take care of those while we allow folks to type in their questions now.
All right, thank you. We do have a couple questions already. This first one looks like it's for Gary. In discussing a little bit about co-marketing and working with your partners, it says, can you elaborate a little bit about how you keep the prospects and borrowers motivated throughout the process? And it sounds like even after the close of the loan.
Well, the motivation, first of all, you want to co-brand and work with a partner, usually a realtor partner, during this process. And if we're talking about during the loan, people usually stay connected, motivated. It's prior to the loan that I think a lot of lenders have been challenged with how to keep that borrower going. And during that process, the education, the information about how home prices have continued to rise, and the difference between renting and buying, and experience that if the loan officer themselves doesn't have, maybe they can share other experiences from the branches or their company where somebody has been able to purchase a home after X amount of time. There's a lot of different storytelling that I think helps when we're talking about the motivation process. And a lot of it's the delivery method. Again, as long as the loan officer can't just use technology and send them a text or an email or a link every so often and hope that borrower is going to stay consistent and stay with them. They have to engage them personally. And then one of the tricks that we use, again, is for the loan officer to have scripting that tells them in my conversation with the borrower to send them, may I send you something regarding the local, whatever that is. And each location has different local items. And then when the consumer says yes, then they're already starting to go to work for them.
Oh, okay. Thank you. This one looks like it's for you also. Can you elaborate a little on how to systematically build referrals and testimonials into the loan process?
Well, again, all of that has to do with the human resources or technology. We work really hard. One thing I didn't mention that I think is really important is we call canceled loans to find out what happened. And I meant to bring this up before because we send out surveys on all closed loans, but we were getting such great results, raving fans. I thought, okay, so what are we missing here? So we actually have some folks in our post-closing department that were loan officers and escrow officers that after 60 days after a loan has been closed or has been denied or canceled, we actually pick up the phone and say, how was your transaction with Mountain West? And then what we get from that is we get some really valuable feedback. But a lot of this is still a manual process for us because then we take that information and we put it into our system. And the testimonials, when they do come, they are forwarded to the marketing department who make sure that they're uploaded onto our websites and are pushed into social media circles. It's a long answer.
Okay. All right, let's see. This one says, it makes sense to find a balance between digital connections through digital channels and in-person meetings. In your experience, which steps in the loan process are best handled by a live human?
Is that for me as well?
It is.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question?
Sure. It says, given your experience, which steps in the loan process are best handled through digital channels and which are best handled by a live human?
Okay, well, that varies a little bit depending on the capabilities of the loan officer and the technology that the company has available for them to leverage. Like I mentioned early on, the sooner that the loan officer can connect with the consumer and start the engagement process, and the more that the consumer each one's different, each transaction slightly different. You want to have the same technology touch points, but if the consumer wants to have more interaction, my vote would always be for the loan officer to provide that, or somebody in the loan officer's group, maybe a loan officer assistant or somebody, because that personal interaction is what builds a strong relationship.
Right. Okay. Okay, Chris, this question's about mobile traffic, and the statistic here is the mobile share of U.S. web traffic continues to rise. It's now around 63%, and you had mentioned that's increasing due to millennials, younger borrowers coming up. What's the rise of mobile mean to mortgage lenders and marketers?
Well, I think from our perspective, the importance is increasing, obviously. From an LMA perspective, so much so that we have organized an entire division that's focused on mobile technology and delivering the different aspects of what LMA does through mobile medium. And so I see a rise in that, and it's not just millennials. I mentioned that the largest segment of home buyers continues to be the baby boomers today. Yet, that segment continues to buy more online. They are doing refi even in a rising market, different different life events happen. They need to put kids through college, or they're, taking out money to buy that RV to go, travel the country. And that often starts through a tablet or a mobile phone. And so it's important for lenders to start thinking about how they're meeting that customer. Like I said earlier, it's about meeting your customer when, where, and how they want to meet with you.
Okay. Thank you for that segue into the next question. It makes sense to meet your borrowers where they hang out and deliver value, to your point, but here's a more basic question. How do you learn where they hang out? How do you learn where your customers hang out?
Well, I think this actually might even be a better question for Gary, because he's probably got some secret sauce of how he engages with the community and engages with his customer base. But I think you got to spend a lot of time, looking, at least from a technology perspective, looking at the social outlets, Facebook being probably primary amongst the lender community where you're creating a presence there. And then, what's old is new again, right? And so as much as we talk about technology, there are some basic things that have worked for decades that still work. Good old-fashioned snail mail, deliveries to the house asking for renewals or doing a annual mortgage review are more effective now, believe it or not, than they were 10 years ago. So while I think it varies from lender to lender, I think from a technology perspective, online social media is probably where we're seeing the most growth in terms of where the consumers are hanging out. Awesome. Do you want to tag on to that, Gary? The same question. How do you know where your borrowers and prospects are hanging out?
Sure. We've been very, one of the things that I think has helped us along is we have been engaged in a lot of first-time home buyer products, which has been one of our focuses for years. And, today that seems to be the millennials. And so we've been able to kind of track where and how they communicate. And a lot of it is through social media circles, inner circles, like I'd mentioned before. So that group is pretty connected online through social media, and that's usually where we connect with them, and that's where we try and push our testimonials and our that's where we communicate.
All right, sounds good. Those are the questions I have, and I think we've got a few more coming in. Dustin, do you have more questions?
Yeah, we've got a couple here. So the first question, I'm not sure if this is better for Chris or Gary, so I'll leave it up to you gentlemen to decide that one. But the question is, you've covered the benefits of marketing technologies for retail lenders, but what about wholesale lenders? Can you give us some insight into that?
Well, again, it depends on who the audience is. If it's a lender that is if it's a wholesale lender that is going out to their brokers, that would be different than if it's the wholesale community or brokers going to the consumers. I think brokers going to consumers looks a lot like the retail channel does, as far as using a CRM and having campaigns and that type of thing. Out to the brokers, out from the wholesale lender to a broker, building those business relationships, again, is a mixture of technology and relationship building. And each lender goes to different products and markets themselves differently. That's kind of a unique branding for each one of us to take on.
Yeah, I could tell you from our perspective, and I mentioned before that one of the technologies that Ellie Mae provides is an e-CRM or e-marketing technology. And it is adopted by some wholesale lenders who will then provide that same technology to their broker channel. And the idea is that they are syndicating, if you will, a content library that can be used by the broker channel to go out and try to build their business. It is uniquely branded to whichever broker it is, but the the core technology is sort of centrally managed by the wholesale lender.
All right, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Gary. We've got one more question here, and we've got we have a last-minute question. This is the time to get it in. And after our questions here, we'll have one slide here that will show the contact information for our speakers. So if you have any further questions afterwards, you can certainly reach out to them directly. So the last question I've got here is, as you go to more online services, especially mobile, how do you keep your customers and your customers' data safe?
I can take that stab at that first. From Ellie Mae's perspective, data security is one of the top tenets that we think about with everything we build. And so I would certainly hope and suggest that any technology provider that you choose to work with shares that same value around keeping the core data safe. And then have technology controls around that. So as you know, today's day and age, everything is hosted technology. Make sure that it is encrypted and that your provider has a security policy that is consistent with what you're comfortable with in terms of data integrity and security.
And I'm going to piggyback off that. It's a combination, first of all, of having the right partners as far as technology and training for the staff on all levels, because data security is one of our #1 priorities and responsibilities as a lender. So we make sure everybody that we do business with, we thoroughly vet all vendors that we are utilizing for any of the software that that does manage data.
All right.
All right, Charles. So that's all the questions I've got. So I'll turn it back over to you to close this out.
All right. Thank you, Dustin. All right. Thanks to Gary Martell Jr. and Chris Backe, our speakers today. I think that was, from my perspective, an awesome webinar. Thanks also to Dustin Hobbs and John Soroka of the California Mortgage Bankers Association. And finally, thank you to our audience. And if we could impose at the last moment here, we would like to ask a favor of the audience. If you could take a moment to fill out the survey we're going to be sending out shortly, that will help us help you, as they say in the movies. We try and put together information that will help you grow your own business. So please take a moment to fill out the surveys. We do appreciate your feedback, and we do read every one. So thanks everybody, and have a great day.